We did.
We did.
Did we though?
Well, YouTube is saying now finally. It is a slow, arduous process. I think I understand now why a lot of people are using those like long video lead in so they can go live and then let it hang out on like this coming soon or we're going to start in a minute videos.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there. Gotta just pop open a few video things here. And our buddy Duff nails it.
Our good buddy Duff. He even put it in a place with the things where people could see it.
Mm-hmm. He is that guy. So, I think tonight is gonna wrap up the build.
Nice.
I've got it all tidied up, ready to go. I can show that in a few minutes here. I got it all set, ready to go. I did not install the firmware. I did not get it all running. I got it all running and then I deleted it all. But I've gone through the process, made sure everything works, and then we're going to go through it tonight to make sure that everybody knows how to do it. Because if you're following along with these videos, it kind of just leaves you hanging. And I don't want to be the guy that leaves you hanging at the end there.
On that note, why don't you take just a couple of moments and cover the cleanup work that happened between last night and today?
Yeah. So let me switch cameras here. So cleanup work that happened between last night and today. I've adjusted the Z end stop. I've set this up. The big work was done down below where the lovely rail was installed. Oh, I can't tip it on the back completely. Skirts were installed. All the wiring was cleaned up underneath. The big one, though, was back here. As all that has now been cleaned up and is ready to go. This channel is ram-packed full of things. Now, what I did here is I notched it at the top so that the cable chain comes straight down and in very cleanly. Nothing's pinched, nothing's binding. Everything's clean and happy. And yeah, it makes it nice.
Happy little wires.
Happy little wires.
We got some skirts on there. We got us a spool holder.
Right now, we are missing side panels, door, top hat.
Okay.
Those are things that are, again, depending on how you want to use the printer, kind of optional. If you don't want to be printing higher temperature materials that don't need any drafting, just leave it like this, ready to go. It'll print, no problem. If you want to print ABS on it, you're going to need to enclose it. The kit comes with everything we need to enclose it. It comes with all of our panels for the top hat, all of the sides, the door, the back panel, everything. We may get to putting those on tonight. I may just do that on my own, and then we'll review it again in an update timeline down the road.
Well, I'm sure there'll be pictures on the Twitterverse.
There is going to be pictures on the Twitter. If you're not already following me on Twitter, please go ahead and do so. It's a good time. For the rest of this time, though, we're going to be following this link right here, which is the Voron Documents. Looks a little something like that. And this is going to basically take you through the last things. You can go through the sections ahead of time about why Voron, choosing it, how to source source your parts and everything like that, what you need for the build. But what we want to do is jump right ahead to software installation. Now, Voron runs Clipper. And with that, you are dealing with a few different ways to manage the Clipper. That's how I kind of like to think of it, is you can use either Octoprint, Mainsail, or what we're going to use is Fluid. And this is your web interface and your communication system from the the Raspberry Pi to the control board, and that runs Clipper. Allows you to do all your live configurations, allows you to send G-code, run commands, home it, like do everything is done through this web interface. So there's no screen or anything on this printer. You can get a screen. LDO does make a Voron V0 screen. The bigger printers do have some screens available for them as well in the Voron lineup. This headless version is fine too. So there's a few different steps. Like I said, we're going to choose fluid only because this is one that I've used before and I'm comfortable with it. I can't really say there's one way over the others to do it. It's just what's going to work best for you. So we need to go through the installing fluid section. So first thing we need to do is download the latest release, which I've already done. We need to unzip it, which I already did. And we need to use this Balena etcher to etch the file to the SD card. Now I'm using a different SD card than what came with the kit. I ran into some misfortunes opening the kit and snapped the SD card in half. So I went out and I bought some new SD cards today. And so we're going to use just a 32 gig Kingston SD card. Nothing fancy. Pretty straightforward for this setup. We're going to flash from file. We're going to tell it where we want to go. We're going to click flash. Let Windows do its thing. And we kick back and relax for a few minutes.
Shouldn't take but a second. This Balena etcher thing works really well with a lot of stuff. Gets used a lot for this kind of thing.
Yeah, if you've done any of the Pi imaging or any disk imaging at all, you may have used this before.
Pi has changed to their own imager now.
They have.
It works pretty slick too.
Mm-hmm. This is the point in the recorded video where you're just going to fast forward until we get to the end because nobody likes watching a thing fly.
And let's be fair, most people are going to watch all of these videos at 2 times speed.
Quite frankly, I think you should. I think it's awesome. Now, while I had the printer running earlier, I did just get the bed in a rough area that it's not going to crash into things. Nothing is going to theoretically rip itself apart and go into mayhem mode. I know that's unfortunate for some, but for me, I just wanted to make sure nothing was amiss. One thing I did find right off the bat, though, was that my 5-volt power supply, the feed line to the Raspberry Pi, was backwards.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
How'd you manage that?
Well, that's what happens when you wire after 10 p.m., 11 p.m. I don't even know what my cutoff it is anymore. I've broken the rule so many times.
Def wants to know if we do stuff.
We do stuff with stuff and things. So it happens. Let me just freak out the computer for a second.
Normal.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that's really nice about this setup overall is that it's really not that complicated. And one of the big benefits to using Clipper, much like RepRap firmware, is that you can make adjustments on the fly. You don't have to pull the SD card and put it back in and then update it and then put it back and then change it. It's all available right there. You can also make an easy backup of it by just copying one file back to your computer. And if something happens that it is SD card, you can just back that file right back onto it. So.
Def wants to know if it's a good idea to remove the sheet before you do the first movements on the printer.
I have verified previously, but I did. So when I put the end stop in for the Z, I set it low. And I suggest that's a highly important thing to do, is set it low to make sure that when it goes to home, nothing is going to crash. So it was a good 5 to 10 millimeters off the tip of the nozzle when I had it running. And then I just adjusted it later. The textured sheet that comes with it is double-sided. The PEI sheet is single-sided. So I've chosen to use the textured sheet because if something happens to one side, I'm not completely in the dark.
Nice. We've seen a lot of variation in amount of roughness of texture on sheets. Is this the same on both sides?
This is the same on both sides. It is the rougher variant of the textured sheet.
Okay.
Same on both sides. This is a design thing, but I really wish there was some kind of registration so that when you slap this little plate back on, it goes back in the same spot every time. The PEI sheet has a little protective film on it, which we can.
You can leave it on if you're not using it for a while.
Oh, but.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the sound.
That's okay. So I'm going to make some sort of little sheet holder for this, or just store it underneath when I'm not using it. It's not too bad.
I have an unrecommended suggestion.
Okay.
There's a channel on the 1515 that goes all the way around. You've got basically a window frame there.
Yeah.
You could just tuck that sheet into the corner along the bottom in the back. It would hit the lower slot and the back slot to hold it vertical and out of the way.
Yeah. All right. So this is done.
Built-in sheet holder.
Oh no! What have I done? What have I done? I pushed one too many buttons. Things went crazy on the computer. I don't know what happened. So it's all done flashing. Now what it's going to load up with is you're going to get a window like this that's going to pop up. And it's going to have all the information on there. And it's going to give you an error saying can't boot or anything. Do not click format. Just ignore it. What you're going to do is you're going to find in here
that's a normal when you make a boot card for a Pi, you get those messages every time.
Yes. So what you're going to locate is the WPA supplicant for Fluid Pi. And you want to edit this with Notepad++, not Notepad. If you don't already have Notepad++, just install it. It's good for editing all these varying softwares. As you can see, I've used it a lot with configuring the tool changer. And what we're going to do is we're going to change some settings in here. What you need to back off are all 4 of those hashtags. If you do not, pound symbols, whatever you want to call them, if you do not get rid of those, it won't connect. In here, you're going to put your SSID, and then you're going to put the password for your SSID. I'm just going to do that off on the other monitor.
For all the people sitting in your driveway, they won't know how to access your network.
Exactly. I'm sorry, neighbors, but I just can't find out how to do it. When you're done entering that information, you're just going to save it. That will write the information on the SD card. You can close Notepad++ at that point because you're done. And then you're going to eject this drive.
So Duff says, can this be skipped for hardwired? Duff, the step of removing the pound signs or hashtags uncomments, or the hashtag or pound sign tells the system, don't look at this line. Removing it basically says, look here.
And if you're hardwired, there are different steps for hardwired. These are going to be all the steps for setting it up wireless. Okay, so what I've done is I've put the SD card into the Raspberry Pi, and now I am ready to fire it up. And what's going to happen is it's going to take a minute to connect to the internet. And I'm just going to double check my router. Again, I'm not streaming that. But all I'm going to do here is just make sure. I'm going to look in my client list, and there should be one labeled Fluid Pi. Once you have that, you need to write down that IP address because you need to be able to get to it.
Well, the fluidpi.local might work as well.
It should. It doesn't on my computer for some reason. Okay, it looks like I've got a new connection. Yeah, it is good.
A new device.
So what I'm going to do now that I have the IP address is I'm going to load up PuTTY. So once we've done this step, we can go on to the next one, which is firmware flashing. So you're going to choose the controller you need to download, and it tells you the steps on what to do. It is missing, at least I feel like it's missing, the step on how to connect this. So I'm choosing the SKR Mini E3 version 2.0 because that's what's in here. And it tells me you need to have Clipper installed on there, and you need to log into the Raspberry Pi image. To log into a Raspberry Pi image, if you've never done it before, you should download a program called PuTTY. And you're going to go to the IP address that your router gave you.
And that was in the previous screen of the instructions that we had.
Was it? Good. I've done it a few times that I kind of skip things sometimes. Raspberry Pi password is always log in as Pi, password is Raspberry. Pretty straightforward stuff. And now we're going to follow the instructions that are listed here. Ask for the password. And it's going to do a little thing. All I'm doing is just following the first 3 lines of code there. I am not by any means a coder or a programmer or any of that stuff, but
it looks like they've given you the directions.
Pretty straightforward. So now what we basically need to do is just this picture that's here, you're going to copy it. So to toggle stuff, you can hit the space bar. Or
Solar
enter.
PuTTY. Rolex is here.
Rolex.
He prefers solar PuTTY. Same thing as PuTTY, but more features. Might have to look into that.
I didn't even know PuTTY had features until now. I don't use them. So basically what I'm doing here is I am just copying the settings that are shown in that image, making sure that it's a 28 kilobytes bootloader, 8 megahertz clock reference. It's using the USB on that. This one I need to type in exclamation point PA14. Capitalization matters. And that's it. It's really not that complicated. We're going to leave the menu. Yes to save the configuration. Now we're going to say make clean. Make. What this is doing now is it is basically grabbing and building all of the information needed to create Clipper.
So our buddy was kind enough to share Solar Putty, a way to go get it, and I believe in Rolex. So there it is for stuff.
And there's probably a ton of different ways of doing this. Like this next step talks about how you can grab this bin file from a command line, or you can use a interface style thing like WinSCHP or CyberDuck for Mac, and there's probably a bunch of other ways to do it. I'm not a computer programming guy. I just do what I follow the instructions. I'm a good instruction maker. So what you're going to do is load up your WinSCHP in my case here. I'm going to log in. I'm going to skip that because I'm not too worried. Username is Pi. Password is Raspberry. And what we're looking for now is in the Clipper folder. It is under Home Pi Clipper out. And we're looking for this clipper.bin. So we're going to copy this file. And I'm just going to put it in a directory off on the side here that I've already done. Now what we need to do is get another SD card.
Another one?
Another one. So one is for the Raspberry Pi. It says to use an 8 gig or more. I like using a 32 because I don't
more room, more better for Pis.
More room, more better for G-code. The one I'm going to use right now is just a 1 gig generic. And we're just going to pop it in here. Now what I'm going to do is paste that file on the SD card. If it wants to cooperate. Now, before I eject it from the SD card, what I need to do is I need to rename it. And it needs to be renamed from this. So what you're going to do is copy that file from wherever you saved it, desktop or wherever. You're going to put it on there, and you're going to just rename it from clipper.bin to firmware.bin. And we're going to eject that. That's it. That's the hard part on that one. Best thing to do is power down the unit, stick the SD card in, fire it back up.
And give it a minute to reconnect.
Give it a minute to reconnect. You're going to get some errors potentially from your connected software saying, hey, what's happening here? So the next thing we're going to do now is the software configuration. What you want to do is download your respective Voron base configuration, like the V0.1 here, which is going to get you this. So you just got to right click it, save link as, and it's going to give you this printer.cfg, which I've already got here.
That looked like a lot of information.
It is the configuration file for the printer. That is basically the firmware. All the rest of this is that web interface, that communication software that I talked about. The actual printer firmware is that one single file. And once we are back up and running, I'm just going to double check that it's so this is the page you're going to get right now before I'm uploading that. So this means we have Fluid working. This is that web interface we talked about. What you're going to do is use that WinCHP software, and you're just going to go up a level, and you're going to go into config. Oh. Looks like we need to log back in. You're going to go into config, and you're going to have all this generic stuff listed in here. What we're going to do is we're just going to put that printer config file that we downloaded. We're just going to drag it onto there. I'm not sure why it's giving me that error. Now, I like to also just add it here too, because I don't know why, it just seems to work better. But I've just dragged it and dropped it on there.
Nice user interface.
Yeah. And so now we've got, this is the printer firmware. And we can go through this in a minute and just see what we need to do. But what we need to get is we need to get the printer's machine name. Where is that setting? So it's up here under their update controller path. So we're just going to take this. We're going to go back to PuTTY. It's going to give us a thing because it timed out. We're just going to run that, and we want this identification. Save that onto a notepad somewhere. And that is our address that we need. Like it shows in this step here about updating the controller path. It seems like it's kind of technical, but it's not.
Kind of like an API key?
It's kind of like an API key. It is how it knows to communicate with the MCU, which is their way of calling it the control board. So everything after USB, clipper, yada, yada, you're just going to paste in your particular key. Now, there's a few other steps we need to do before we even do anything.
Okay.
What we need to do is we need to come down here to the Z stepper.
Uh-oh.
And it's pretty well laid out. We're going to do the same idea of uncommenting things we want it to look at. So we want it to look at this LDO stepper. So delete those two lines. The next step is for the extruder motor. Two different choices. This is the one we have, the LDO one. So we're just going to say LDO for both of those.
Okay.
We don't have to worry about the bed heater, the thermistor values, the fans, nothing else. All the rest of this with the configuration. This is all start macros and stuff. We don't need any of it for now. We're going to hit save and restart. And what's going to happen is it is going to find me some things here. Virtual SD card not found in printer. Okay, that's great. Thank you. But we have some values.
We do.
So it is communicating with the printer. If I change back over to the printer, we'll be able to see that we can move X and Y. Now I'm just going to manually move this out of the way here. The motors aren't engaged right now, so it's fine. So there is some startup procedures you want to do to make sure that you're doing the right steps. And that is in the terminal, there's some checks you want to make, like this stepper buzz. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the dashboard. And we're going to come over here to this console area. And we're going to paste that in. And right now what it's going to do is it is going to move the X motor back and forth a few times.
Just wiggled it just a little.
It just wiggles it just a little. Buzz is kind of not the right term. The big thing is this motor moving left to right, or is it moving front to back? We're now going to do the same thing for the Y. Because it's the core XY, it does move the X again. So just deal with it. We're going to do the same thing for the Z. You can tell the motor's moving up and down.
Got to look real close, but you can see it.
Yeah. And we can do the same thing for the extruder, only instead of labeling it stepper, you just say extruder. This won't mean much to anything, but what you can do here is put your hand on the extruder setup and you'll feel it.
Feel it moving.
I can actually hear it making a little click noise.
So can we.
So that right there tells us that all of our motors are plugged in and working properly.
Okay.
The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to this end stops page under tune. I am really not sure why I'm getting this warning. And we're just going to refresh the end stop status. So right now, all of our end stops are open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my finger on the X end stop and I'm going to hit refresh again. And now it's triggered. Let it off and it's open. So the X end stop works. I'm going to check the Y end stop. Triggered. Let it off. Open. Z is a little bit trickier if you've got fat fingers like I do. Triggered. Open. That means we're safe to home it. All the end stops are triggerable. So let's go home X and Y. Now, unlike many printers, this homes in the back left print corner, or back right corner, sorry.
Kind of makes sense.
Now we're going to home the Z. This is where having that check first makes sure that I didn't crash the bed. If this end stop was higher, I would have crashed the bed. If it was too low, I wouldn't crash anything. So when I first started it up, I had it lower. There is a little adjustment screw on the part for the lead screw where you can adjust it if you need to fine tune it up and down without having to move the whole thing. You've also got the knobs underneath, and it's a good idea just to crank those down just a little bit before you start homing and doing everything.
So since that's a physical switch that's attached to the bed mount on the lead screw.
Yep.
So you still have some adjustment that you can make by actually raising and lowering the heated bed itself to get your nozzle gap. Got it.
You've got a couple, right? So you can move this plastic part, which holds the end stop, up and down.
Mm-hmm.
There is a screw that you can't see on the printed part holding the lead screw, and that's what engages on the end
So you got a little bit of adjustment there.
And if you need to, you can adjust it with the knobs. The knobs are your bed tramming, like your bed level, as we like to call it. The other two are really for getting that Z-stop. And that's really just where you've brought it up to 0 and it doesn't hit anything, and when it's not 10 feet away from the bed. Now I should be able to just move the motor. But I got this weird out of range message. I don't understand. This is what happened to me earlier today. I don't know why it did this. I don't know what it did. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make some changes. I'm just going to change it 2 millimeters on X, 2 millimeters on Y. Oops. And I'm going to go down here. I'm going to skip past the extruder. And on the Z-safe homing, we're going to do the same thing, 118. Save and restart.
That's backwards.
For some reason, this is backwards. I have to see if I have to adjust that or not, but it does home in the right direction, so I'm not sure. It could be because of the...
Well, increasing your Z height would drop the bed, so...
It's counterintuitive to what you think it should be, but it's right. And then what we can do is we can send out the Y, 50, send it over, 50, and then we're able to home all. And it comes back. Now, one thing I found that I'm going to change right away, we're going to go back into the printer configuration, and we're going to scroll down to where we find the extruder. This extruder was moving backwards. The easy way to test that is you preheat it, and you're going to tell it to extrude. I think they're always going to be backwards just based on the motor. So it's just easier to add an exclamation mark in front of that, and now it's backwards fixed. That's, again, one of the nice parts about Clipper and RepRap firmware is you don't need to, I don't have to pull any wires, I don't have to touch anything. I just reverse it. Oops. Now what I want to do is I want to just see, so it's giving me this virtual SD card stuff, and it was talking about the macros that we're missing.
I don't know why you'd want to be missing macros.
Well, I'm not sure why it was giving me a hard time about it, because they're not here. Like this is the whole point about this thing. This is their default configuration. So
but did it not do this during your testing?
No, it did something. It didn't do this at all. This is why, one of the reasons why I'm actually not a fan of Clipper is it does random things, and I can't explain why. I'm not sure why it's giving me a warning about stuff that it doesn't need, but one thing we can do is we can check the part cooling fans. So fire those up.
Heard that.
And those are both spinning. We can, now this is a tip that I told Duff earlier today, and I think it's, I never like to set the heater temperature right away. That's like 50.
Oh, sure. Set it low. Something manageable if things go.
If it starts to climb and doesn't stop climbing, it's easier to find it when you're not waiting a few minutes and getting distracted.
Yeah, you see it sooner.
Yeah. Right now it's already at 50 degrees. 50 degrees is also not a crazy temperature that you can't touch it with your finger and go, yep, that's warm.
Okay.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to set the bed to 50 as well. And we're able to see here the temperatures.
Wiggle, wiggle.
Now this one I don't wait too long to feel. I'm just going to make sure that it's going to 50.
Yeah, and the bed's taking a little bit longer to heat up too.
And I can feel it heating up. Now, one thing that's nice here is it shows you 100% and 11%. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to double the temperature on that and send them both to 100% power levels to make sure nothing goes pop. No funny lights dimming, no fans kick out. That was full draw. Doesn't matter whether it's 100 degrees or 500 degrees. Full draw is full draw. And it's already reached the 100 degree set point.
It's an interesting test.
Yeah. Oh, hey, there I am. So I'm just going to pull this tube out. And I've got just a piece of filament. And I'm just going to
fill all the mint.
Stick it in there, but I'm not going to shove it in. And I'm going to raise the temperature to 180 degrees. At the same time, I'm going to keep an eye on the bed temperature to make sure that it's not overshooting 50 silly by anything crazy. When Chris and I fired up the 120 volt beds on the V0, we had a configuration wrong and they went semi-nuclear.
Oh.
And thermal runaway didn't kick in. It was a thing.
I recall that being a thing.
Yeah. At the same time, I'm going to just manually, because the motors are off, just going to move that forward so we can see it a little better.
There's even a little button there that says motors off.
Yeah. So we're at 180. And what I'm going to do now it is anything I think above 170, 175, it unlocks the ability to use these. So I'm just going to hit extrude on 10 millimeters. And I'm going to feel my filament. And the filament is pulling in. When I did this test earlier, it was reversed. So if you do this and it pushes out at you, then you're reversed. Hit retract. And if it goes in, you're reversed. And so what you do is you go in to the configuration and change that little setting.
That exclamation point.
Yep. Now what I can do is I can just turn off the heaters, because at this point, X homes, Y homes, Z homes, heaters work. Extruder's moving in the right direction. I'm going to put my little plastic tube back together. Apparently pop a zip tie.
Normal.
Never done that before. These things all break. You never know. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the settings. We're going to check for software updates. I know we just installed software, but guess what? There's updates that need to be done.
That seems normal.
100% normal.
I just got a new blah, 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 blah. Here's an update.
Yeah, it's really frustrating is that I just downloaded the firmware. Like I just told it, go make a new copy of the firmware. And it said, okay, no problem, boss. And it's a layer behind. So we're going to click on this update clipper thing. Now, what this is going to do is this is where our friend Fred informed me, because he's currently building one of these. It's going to break the whole thing.
Well, that's fun.
But it's easy to fix.
Why we got to break things? I'm not saying that. It would sound completely wrong coming out of me.
Sup, Holmes? Yeah, it might.
Well, maybe this update will fix those errors.
That's what I'm wondering, if maybe that's why there's errors.
Probably. It sounds like something you would do.
Yeah. So that's finished.
Hooray.
And now we can do update Moonraker.
What is Moonraker?
It's the basically the back end of this interface.
I thought that was Fluid.
That's the front end of this interface. They don't like to make things uncomplicated.
Okay.
They've got multiple different layers to it. And somebody who knows Clipper a lot better than I is probably screaming at their computer, throwing things, sending hate mail, and I'm sorry. I only know what I know, and I don't know a lot.
99.9% of these steps would be the same for the 2.4. Is that true?
Yes, there is a whole section for the different setups here, and I can just go over that here. So when you do this, your step are going to be, what board do you have? So on a 2.4, you'd be looking at probably a 1.4 or Octopus. And then you're going to do the steps for that and the configuration you need when it has the initial startup and the config files. So you're going to download the config file for that particular machine. What page that was on, I couldn't tell you anymore. But it's when you download this printer.cfg.
Audio supports for these printers. You want it to play a little tune when it's done?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Make a little WAV file. Get in here and clean off this print bed, dirty boy.
So here's what I said about it not working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The MCU has a mismatch version.
Okay.
So what we have to do here is go to here. And we're going to say, first of all, let's oh, I guess it is still running. Good. I just got to find the exact. I'm not a good with coding things, so I have to find the exact numbers.
Do you know what it's called?
It was the make, clean, make. I'm going to get to that section. First, we're going to get into the directory for Clipper. We're going to go make clean, make.
Interesting. Duff wants the printers to yell at you when they crash. That's good. Tie Octoprint to HomeKit to send notifications to smart speakers and announce when a print finishes. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. And there is some stuff for when it does that to send a text notification and stuff. I know there's some versions for that.
Yeah, Duff, that's what Jordan was talking about with the... Sometimes it just says, I don't want to, and gives you random errors.
Yep. Okay, so now this says version 10. So then once it's done doing that, we have to go back to this WinSCHP.
Probably
go
have
back
to reconnect.
Go back to the Clipper out. And the same thing, we're going to copy the clipper.bin. Say, yeah, I want to replace it. We're going to take the SD card out of the SKR Mini E3. Going to copy it over and do the same thing. Name it firmware.bin. You don't have to worry about deleting the file that's already there because once you reset it, it will just overwrite that file.
That's a lot, dude.
That's like when you do any updates on Marlin, you have to do that too, where you have to take that file and put it over there. But
yeah, the part that seems odd to me is you're doing the update steps on the printer.
You're doing the update steps on the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is only using USB
on the printer,
but it's only it. I know, and this is where I don't.
That's where it seems silly.
The convolutedness of it, because it is communicating to the control board, but the firmware on the control board had a mismatched version, so it couldn't talk to each other properly.
Yeah, you'd think there'd be a way that they could fix that.
And now we're still getting these fluid warnings. What is this? All right. What does it want? Display status, virtual SD card. Let's make it happen.
Can you do a Control F here and find
actually
one of the words in there to see if it's just commented out?
Yeah, let's take a look. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go down to the bottom here and we're going to just give it all the little things it wants. Did it have a pause G-code macro? No. Okay, let's just put that in there then. Now it's going to need a resume. This is, again, one of those things that I just don't like about Clipper is that, like, if this stuff was required, why wasn't it in the example configuration provided to me?
That's okay. So,
and we went through this with the tool changer where there are settings that are particular to the setup of the machine, but the actual, can you get the machine to not give you an error?
Yeah, that's not a Clipper the software problem. That's a Clipper the developer didn't put it in their software.
Yeah. Cancel print macro could not be found.
I know you just did that one.
It's very particular when it had that little space in front. I'm also getting these currently throttled errors, which tells me it's saying that there's an under voltage detected every time it restarts. I'm not sure if on reset there's some sort of error or something like that that it has a beef with. But what we're able to do is now it's not giving me any kind of errors. Now I can go back to not looking at me and say home all. And there we go, home all.
And there we go.
But we need to print something, right?
We do.
So this is a Prusa slicer, 2.4 alpha, because I didn't feel like turning on the, I haven't downloaded the RC, or not RC, now it's a final.
Now it's a full-on release.
It was Christmas, there was a lot going on. And I just created a quick profile based off of an old one that I downloaded from the Voron Discord.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go through the process of setting up a slicer profile. This is something that everybody can find the information or go through.
I think you've got somebody really excited with that bed image.
Yeah, so that is one fun part about it, is part of the stuff that they provide. And I believe, you know what, actually, I think it actually even has right here the super slicer profile sequences. There's a ton of stuff in here on printing and stuff like that. There's even how to get your serial number of all the silliness in the world. But I digress. But included in that is under general, there's a model STL that you can load after you set your bed size. And what that does is that shows you the bed of the printer when you're in the slicer, which I think is kind of cool. So I keep it. Now we don't have ABS in there today. But we have a Benchy. Looks like a Benchy. It's probably going to print like a Benchy. One thing you can do is set up a physical printer in Prusa Slicer, and this is actually a lot easier than others. You just tell it Octoprint, give it the IP address of the printer. You don't need an API key, and you just give it a name, and now you can just send files directly. So just like that, I just whipped it over to the printer. Now, before the stream, I got a little playing around, and I made the LDO cube. The LDO cube only takes 27 minutes to print. So
go.
Go.
Except that you didn't check the box that said start printing after it's sent.
No, because I have to load filament.
Oh, smart.
Now, one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to, where is it? Where are you? Settings?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know either. That's why I'm trying to find it. And we're going to go into settings. And we're going to change the color to orange. We need a name for this printer as well. Like every printer needs a name.
Do they though?
They do. I do like that it comes with dark mode enabled. So we're going to add a thermal preset.
Okay.
And we're going to set this to 260.
260 seems a little warm.
A little bit warm. But now, under presets, I can hit PLA preheat.
Nice.
It is really easy to do that. There is more steps that need to be done as far as tuning the E steps and stuff like that.
Well, that's what Rolith just asked.
Oh.
Is there a way to adjust E steps?
Yes. And this brings me to something I don't like to talk about. In 3D printing, we have learned about tuning your E steps. Checking your step values on your printer. So if you say move 10 millimeters, it moves 10. If you say extrude 10 millimeters, it extrudes 10 millimeters. Like verifying that the rotation is right. Clipper has something different.
You were just there.
They have rotation distance. So rotation distance is their system, their configuration on how to do it. So they have a formula you have to use, and it's calibrating rotation distance on extruders doc.
Rolex, was this a setup?
And I'd love to have something here about how to do it, but I don't know. It just seems like there's a link missing with information. So I'm not sure. There's going to be somewhere on how to do it. We're going to YOLO it and see what happens. And I'm pretty sure it was a setup. So thanks.
By the way, that's broken for me too.
Yeah, that's just how it is. It just be like that.
It just be like that. I have a question.
Okay.
In their guide, where you were setting up the slicer, the next one was first print.
Yeah.
What's with the fascination with serial with the Voron group?
I don't know. The serial number is not like you and I would assume a serial number is.
No. Breakfast cereal.
Yes, it is a breakfast cereal. There you go. Duff says Eddie the engineer has a great video on it. Duff now has the ability to post the video link.
Look at that.
Earned himself a wrench. Came in clutch. So what I've got here now is I'm going to preheat my filament and my thing. Now we're going to get a roll of, shockingly, Sparta3D PLA. We're going to go with the rainbow today. Now, only doing the rainbow because I got no sides or top or anything of that on there, so it's not ready for ABS. I've definitely got lots of ABS here that we can use if need be.
Mikhail, it's not that somebody doesn't like cereal. It's just in multiple conversations, I've seen fascinations with spoons and breakfast cereal, and I don't understand it. Well, Rolex, apparently it's not as easy as we thought it might be, but Duff's going to find us that video and it'll show you exactly how easy it is.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how to do it. I'm not an expert.
Do you play one on TV?
Nope.
Okay.
Now, I did hot tighten or not hot tighten it. I did cold tighten the nozzle before we even got going on anything.
While you were building it.
Yeah, while I was building it. I'm not too worried about that right this minute.
And there's our link from Duff.
I do want it to start pushing a little bit of plastic.
So Mikhail, I don't know if it's easier or harder or what, but that video link that Duff just put in there walks you through the whole process.
Yeah, and it very well could be easier. I have seen it as a complicated process. I don't know that it's still complicated. Maybe it got easier. But the measure 120, mark it off, tell it to extrude, check your value. That's how I do it. But I don't like how it's not called E-steps. I think that's just probably all it is. It's probably just a personal right, and nobody should listen to me about that anyways. Now then, I've extruded some filament. We're going to home all, and now we're going to set our bed thickness.
So that looks like a lot of math.
Now there is even a thing I can do here.
Well, then you should do it.
I'm going to do it. So it's this fancy bed leveling.
Ooh.
It's baked into Clipper. Where it goes to the individual locations, and then you can adjust.
Accept, adjusted, or abort.
Okay. This is kind of where having the panels off does make it a little bit easier.
I bet. Especially because it's such a small printer. Trying to get in there sideways with a piece of paper and making the adjustment just seems like a big no.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it again.
Uh-oh.
So this just
looking for repeatability.
Lets me make sure that I
didn't throw something else off while fixing the other 2 points.
Yep. And the other great part about a manual adjusting bed is you can really adjust it on the fly as you go.
Yeah, Duff, we don't want to teach the kids that they can adjust our printers. That's bad ideas.
Okay, apparently it doesn't want to start print.
Apparently it thinks it's done.
Huh.
Fastest print ever.
That's right. The value start print is not valid for macro. Okay.
Oh, goodness.
Print start. And that's just, see, there's the change that occurred. See, when I first set this up, it was on the other setup, and now it's.
And make sure you spell it paint start too.
What? Oh, it says print. Don't you start with me, Bob. Jobs.
All right, Mikhail. If you're giving Duff a hard time over his build, we must know who you are. What's your other name?
What's your other name? Who are you? Okay. Jobs, quit bouncing around.
So now will it print?
I don't know. It's doing something. It's heating up to 215.
Okay. That must be our first layer temp. That's not a new.
What is this? Print underscore start.
Yeah, that wasn't a new message. That's a new message.
The value print start is not valid for them. What? What is this?
No, you just checked. It was right in the G code.
Yeah, but this is the new message.
So let's go to the macro. Print start, print end. Okay, let's go to the G code then. Print status hidden in the top left.
Oops. Top left has nothing hidden. Let's just release that. Say print.
Joseph Tam, good evening. And Mike, dang it. Everybody's jumping in.
Yeah.
Maybe we should check the G code, see if that verbiage is somewhere else that we're missing.
Right. Well, what's weird is start underscore print. Yeah. Let me check this slice again. Make sure it doesn't have this right here.
It's in the second line too.
Yep. That's just what happens too. Like this is an old configuration. One thing I did not do earlier was make sure that it would print. That was fresh plastic. Send. Let's go. Ah, you're there already.
Material, bed, temp.
Okay, you know what? Just get rid of all of that. I don't even know. I've
had enough of you.
I've had enough. I am not entertained.
We are not amused. Okay, no new errors. Hey, we got chunk.
Yeah, it didn't like what it was doing. It got stuck.
Kick it down the pit.
I think just from it sitting there for a while, it didn't. Could also be my bed level.
Do you need to rehome?
Yep.
Hey, look, this is where you live. Aren't you good for your home?
Jobs, print.
Got to get back up to temp.
I wonder if it's going to do. I just want to see what it does now. I wonder if I have to manually get it back up to temp or what. If it's going to do bed first, then heater.
Because it's dropping.
It's bringing up the bed.
Okay. Mikhail says, did it start printing in the back corner? It could be relative versus absolute movement modes, but it's hard to watch on mobile.
Yeah. It should be okay, but we're going to find out in a second here. I think what happened is it had a little bit of filament and got stuck. I don't know what the stall sensitivity is at right now.
Well, we're at.
I don't know what it
seem.
No.
But it's just going for it. Right back there in that corner.
It's just doing its thing. It's hitting the end stops every time, but it's.
I wonder if it's those stepper motors and the two different guides showing them plugged into the different ports.
Maybe. I don't know. It's printing of all the silliness.
Yeah, but when it went home, it worked.
Yeah. It thinks it's in the middle of the bed.
So maybe it is that relative versus absolute positioning thing.
Yeah, I don't think I had that set up. Like, there's nothing in the G code to tell it to do any of that.
Joseph asks if the bed size is correct, and I think we set that to 118.
Stop. Stop! Like, it was printing. Let's just double check our configuration. So that's fine. That's fine. Extruder's the right direction. I wonder. Weird. You know what? We're just gonna do this. Shh. Gonna hit a little undo action.
Yeah, Joseph, we've homed it a few times, and it moves fine. He says give it some G1 movements in the console to see if it moves the way you think it should.
Yeah, well, let's go G1, X0, Y0. It doesn't like going to full 0 because it's a little bit. That's the thing, is there's a little bit of a shape difference. That's where you got to kind of set yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But it does go to the
It
front
went the right
corner,
direction.
and it is reporting 0, 0 on X and Y. So if I tell it go over 25, it goes over 25. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to back this screw out just a little bit, so when it does home, it's a little bit closer to the edge of the bed. I wonder if when I did the bed level, I got it caught on the corner.
Okay.
So let's take a look here. Happy little guy.
Happy little Sparty guy. Sparty McSpartface.
Yeah, its start position is a little bit back off the bed. Let's move. Need a 0. Let's go. Motors off. Yeah, it's just a little low. It was just clipped. It was just
should have been
clipping
visible in your printed part too.
Yeah, it was just clipping the corner of the bed.
Okay.
Jobs. Print the LDO cube. See what it does.
Hopefully it does all the things.
Yeah, I do think it was just a bit low. It felt. When I pushed it forward at 0, it looked like it was catching just the corner of it ever so slightly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, we did not theory the bed, so we're good.
No. It's still good. There's no theorying involved. I like that it drops the bed out of the way for the heat up.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening, like from the configuration differences, is just the change from when Chris and I did this one with the beta versions, and just kind of how far because Clipper is new. They're mainstream new anyways. It's been around for a bit, but this is kind of new for them to be doing all this, and I think more people getting their hands on it makes it better, like anything. So
it does if those people are able to put feedback into it.
Yes. Articulable quality feedback is never a bad thing.
And if that feedback gets acted on.
Yeah. Heat up time compared to the V0. It's using the same hot end.
But the bed's not.
The bed's not. It's a tiny little bed. So, I mean, it heats up just fine. Like we were, a minute and it was warm?
Not even that.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty warm in here to begin with. It looks... Huh. Doing it again. I don't know.
Well, why don't you just let her fly?
One.
Because it's only a 25-minute thing to go.
It's hitting the end stops as it goes.
Oh.
There is one thing we can try. And we said we might have to do it. Let's just flip those motor cables and see what happens.
Yeah, but everything's homing properly and moving right when you put it in the...
Unfortunately, that doesn't mean a lot. It does and it doesn't. This can't hurt anything. And everything's right there. Easy to get to.
Mikhail
I'll know.
What's the print start macro?
It's a great question.
Copied directly from the instructions.
Whatever that came with. That's realistically whatever the base config came with.
Mike.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Well.
Okay. Let's home X and Y and see what happens.
Stop that nonsense.
Okay. So it wasn't that.
Bad decisions were made. So let's go to software config. Where were those macros?
Probably would be bad. That's why it didn't work. All right, while we wait for that to reconnect. Macro start is a G28.
So that doesn't look like the same document that we were playing with.
So once it turns on, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to move the nozzle away from the bed.
Mm-hmm. Absolute versus relative. So, Mikhail, where do we find said thing?
Well, that's the big thing is right now there's no custom G code. Maybe we could uncheck the relative E.
Yeah, but E shouldn't be what we're talking about. What other G code flavors are there?
Many.
That's not helpful.
Correct.
Okay, so if it's in the slicer that this problem exists, and we look at
That's so not useful.
G code flavor rep wrap, okay, fine. Does Clipper have G90? Joseph asks.
I don't know.
I don't know.
This is the part this was a working slicer configuration on another Voron printer.
Yeah. I'm reading through a config file just to see what I see. Add it to your print start macro. Add G90 to your print start macro. Joseph wants to see your print start macro again.
Print start macro. There you go. All 2 lines of it.
He says add G90 and M83.
Okay, let's go. Done. Currently throttled. I'll throttle you.
Makes me, the fact that you keep getting that error message makes me wonder what the maximum current output of that 24-volt power supply is.
It's not the power, it's the little 5-volt converter. And there's no way to adjust it. It's a solid state one, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, but what's it capable of outputting?
Yeah, and the pies need a very...
Oh, of course, he says after those 2 lines. Chat delays suck.
How about that? How do you like it now?
I don't know. Let's wait 30 seconds and find out.
Yeah. See, and that's the thing that's weird about this throttle thing is it only happens on restart. I think when it's rebooting both devices.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jobs. Print.
There's the call for the heat bed to warm up.
Was this up here in last time?
I don't think so. Maybe. And Joe says it's good. You know, that's what we need every day. Approval from one Joe.
That's new, he says.
There's the call for the hot end to heat up.
Yep. That's right. It is funny when you're on a live stream and everyone's yelling, "Stop! Stop! Don't do it!" and the guy just keeps going.
Well, yeah, because there's a delay, right?
Mm-hmm.
They say stop, and
I say, "What?"
We've already done whatever they're telling us to stop.
Yeah. It's honestly why I don't like troubleshooting stuff over.
Yeah,
YouTube
it's rough.
Chat, because it takes time to come back and pick up pieces. Best part is as far as the printer configuration and setup goes, it is running. It's just not running right.
It is, in fact, running left.
I had a little bit off center. That's fine.
The streamers always ignore chat when they're having problems too. Well, yeah, but that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yes. Nothing like having problems and trying to read the chat.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Did it again.
Yeah. It's almost like its first moves are what it freaks out about.
Yeah, Duff, nothing to do with the kit. This is not a hardware issue.
No, I'm more than certain this is something entirely to do with the slice.
It could just be a configuration thing too, Duff, in the slicer.
Yeah.
So identifying that's going to be rough. Set the bed temperature and wait for it. Then set the hot end. That explains that behavior. Why are we moving negative?
That just retracts a little off the extruder.
Oh, that's E. Okay. The text isn't clear.
It is very small. I get it. Yep. I wonder. Origin 00.
That's the problem. That's not your origin point.
Think so?
That's where your nozzle's starting. That's where it's moving from. That's where home is.
It's true. You know what? It can't be any worse than it already is. I said just that. Cannot be any worse than it already is, Bob. Oh, thanks.
0, 0 should be the front left, which is where it was originally. It homes to maximum depending on how you set up the config.
No. Well, let's just stop that then.
That's not going to solve our problem.
Yep. Close all this. Get away from me. Go away.
Better change it back.
Zero, zero.
Let's go back to the G code for the first one. Oh, Mikhail wants to open the config.
Config opened.
Oh, go back up.
What?
Okay.
It is weird that it's it basically tries to move in areas that it just can't.
Yeah, it's trying to move positive from maximum.
Right. And this is how it came. Position end stop 120, position max 120.
For both of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Is if we go back to the configuration file that they give. Oh, that's a white screen. This is the default stuff that's given by Voron. 120 and 120. That's harsh. It does home at 120, 120.
And when we do the home and manual movements, it works perfect.
All the manual movements, it works perfectly, right? Like,
which tells me it's got to be in the what the slicer is telling the G code to do.
Home all. Right, we're at a nice happy thing. Is at 120, 120. Z is 50 or is 5. So let's.
Well, it moved it up and then back down.
So I've just increased it to Z25.
So did the GUI show 00 when homed?
Nope. 120,
no, 120, 120.
And 5.
And 5.
And if I tell it now, I want you to move forward 10, 20, 30, 40, 10, 20, 30, 40. You know, it's
everything else is backwards when you hit those arrows. Why is X not?
because it's in the max position over here, right? So imagine that the nozzle's over here in this little square because it's at max. So what I'm saying is
when you moved Y, did you
when I
use the
moved
upper?
Y, I moved down.
You moved the down arrow. Okay.
Because I'm decreasing Y and I'm decreasing X. And this is the part that's backwards by the thing is I'm moving Z down,
Yep.
But it's actually an up number.
Good morning, Goob.
But again, homing Z, it has to do X and Y first.
So, yeah, it seems like it's got to be in what the G code's telling it to do.
Yeah. And the only thing there is that is.
Hi, Grant.
So do I have any other custom G codes? No.
Is Joe still in here?
Not
Grant
sure. He might have
should
been
say hi
mobile.
to Joseph.
Grant says we should say hi to Joseph.
No, Grant should say hi to Joseph. He said hi to almost everybody else, and then
He
said
did.
others.
Yeah, something up with the slice. I'm not sure what it is.
This one's going to take some time to figure out.
I think it's going to take some time to figure out. I don't feel like it's being productive on the stream for that part of things. So we're just going to put that away. Hey, it's me again.
It's you again.
Unfortunately. Fun little t-shirt guy. I think that's going to wrap it up for now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out the slicer. And if that means downloading and installing Super Slicer or something, then so be it. And then I will get all the panels installed and the top hat on and get some printing some parts, and we will revisit this in probably actually like a week's time. I've got some stuff I got to take care of this week.
Well, and I don't know that future decisions to be made. Maybe this is a follow-up that we do with the Twitters.
Yeah. I'm going to reach out to a few people this evening and see if we can get some motion on this. And otherwise, it's just gonna let it rock for now, and then we'll come back to it and see how it's working. I will be putting out the first print on Twitter whenever I do get it done, so I will post that print when it is up and running. The good news for today is that it is running. It is running in the right directions. The slicer does not like me, so we'll figure that out.
We will. Well,
thanks a ton. Yeah, thanks a ton for everybody for coming by and sticking with us through this last 20 minutes of boring monotony.
Or showing up at the last second. Grant.
Showing up at the last second. But hey, it's the things that we do. So, everybody stay safe. Have a good time, and we will see you next
year.
Next year.